Hey guys, it's Jeff from Press Your Luck, and I am so excited to share with you a recipe that is so classic and so fantastic in Mexican cuisine, and it's also on top of that on the lighter side. It's the most rich and amazing tasting stew. Guys, it's called a pozole, and it usually features a protein like a pork. Sometimes there's chicken in there, and there's other two key ingredients, which is a hominy, and I'll get into what that is a little bit later, and we use something typically called an ancho chili in there to give it such unbelievable and rich flavor. It's not very spicy. You can also spice the soup up how you wish, and I'll show you that in the video as well. But at the end of the day, it's all about an amazing, rich tasting, delicious, delicious Mexican pozole. And I'm gonna show you we can do this in one pot and done very simply right in the Instant Pot. So let's sashay on over and get going on the most amazing pozole in the Instant Pot. Let's do it. All right, so we're gonna start off with one large Spanish or yellow onion, and we're gonna dice it up. Now let's take one poblano pepper, which is a very mild pepper and a wonderful flavor. If you can't find a poblano pepper at your local market or produce stand, you can use a green bell pepper instead, or you can leave it out, but I like to add this poblano pepper in there. And I'm gonna dice that up, and I've removed the seeds. Okay, so the next ingredients are completely optional because not everyone wants some spice, but if you want your pozole to have a little bit of a kick, a jalapeno pepper is like a medium spicy pepper, and we're gonna take two of them here on the left or the right, doesn't make a difference, and separate them. And I'm going to, on the left, slice the stems off and then slice each pepper down the middle, and then you see all the white stuff, that's called the rib, and the seeds. And I've removed the seeds and the rib from these jalapeno peppers. It's gonna keep the spice level a lot down. If you're going to use your fingers to do this, you're gonna get spicy fingers afterwards. That means if you put them in your eyes, be prepared to cry some tears probably, or if you touch other parts of your body, you're gonna feel a really warm sensation. So just be very, very mindful of that. Wash your hands afterwards, or you can of course use those nitrile gloves, which are very popular these days. Now let's focus on these other two jalapeno peppers. And now these, I want to keep the seeds and the ribs intact. Either way, I'm going to take the four that are already de-seeded and have the ribs removed, and I'm going to dice these up into, normal sized dice set pieces, and then take these other four, except these could be a little bit more coarse because these are going to be for a separate part when we puree a little bit later. Now again, guys, you don't have to add jalapeno peppers. It's not completely necessary. It does add a kick to this pozole. It's not going to be overkill though. I promise it will not, even with the seeds and ribs intact here. Again, we've removed them here, which totally dumbs down the spice level. But again, totally optional. You don't have to add these. Moving on. Now I want to focus on about 3 to 3.5 or so pounds of pork. Now for this, I'm going to use pork shoulder, but if you want something really convenient, I recommend something that's called country style ribs, which is literally just a pork shoulder, just sliced and boneless for you already. I get this at Costco, an amazing value, and this is, it's cut into these strips just like this already. But what I want to do is take it a step further and then cut these into like bite-sized chunks, all right? And I've sliced this up into bite-sized pieces. Again, it's called country style ribs, is really the best cut. Don't get fooled though, there's no bones on these ribs. These actually are boneless pork shoulder, like I said. However, if you want to use chicken for this, you can use chicken instead. You can use some breasts, you can use thighs, it's up to you. But I'm doing a pork pozole here, and guys, it's gonna be absolutely spectacular, I promise. All right, now our prep's done, let's move on. All right, guys, now I want to add in 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil right to my Instant Pot. Make sure the liner pot, the stainless steel liner pot's in there, because if we were to pour it just on this, guess what? You're pouring it directly on the heating element. And we don't want that to happen. You're gonna ruin your beautiful pot. Make sure this is in the pot first. Now let's heat this up. All right, I wanna come down to my control panel and I wanna hit the saute button and make sure I'm on the more or high setting and give that some heat. And after 3 minutes of the oil heating up in the pot, we're gonna add in our diced onion, diced poblano pepper, and the 2 jalapeno peppers, if you're using them, that were seeded and had the ribs removed, all right, and diced up. And we're gonna saute in the pot for about 5 minutes. All right, and after about 5 minutes of sauteing my veggies, they'll get a little bit softened in there. I wanna add in 3 cloves of minced or pressed or crushed garlic. And we'll saute that for 1 minute longer. Now I'm gonna add in my liquid, guys. I'm going to add in, personally, 4 cups of a low sodium beef broth because I'm going with pork pozole. However, many people who make pozole just simply opt to add in water instead of a broth, and that's completely fine too. Absolutely. I just like to add the broth because it gives it a little bit more flavor, but that's totally your choice. And you could really use any flavored broth you'd like if you're adding broth. This is also totally optional and perhaps on the non-traditional side for a pozole, but if you want to give it a little bit of a smoky flavor, you can add in about a teaspoon of liquid smoke. You don't have to add this. I just like to give it a little bit of a smoky touch. Now, one of the key ingredients, if not the key ingredient to a pozole, is hominy. I'm going to use 3 15-ounce cans of a white hominy that I've rinsed and drained using a little strainer or a colander. You can find it in 15-ounce cans, you could find it in really large cans. Just use a combined effort of about 45 ounces or so of hominy. Just rinse and drain it, add it to the pot. And for those asking what hominy might be, it's basically corn that's in like an alkaline solution. It's also what's used to make grits as well. Great stuff. Now I want to add in 2 tablespoons, yes, you got that right, 2 tablespoons of oregano. You can also use Mexican oregano, as well as 4 teaspoons of seasoned salt and 1 teaspoon each of cumin, or cumin, however you want to pronounce it, garlic powder, and black pepper. And these are also optional because I love to give options here, guys. 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder and 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. Now you're going to add that cayenne only if you want a little bit of a spicy kick to it. That's totally optional as well. And now we're going to stir the pot up to make sure everything is nice and combined in there. Next up, we have all of our pork. It's cut into nice bite-sized pieces here. Add that to the pot. Getting pretty filled up now, guys. This is going to be one incredible, incredible, delicious soup or stew. Really, it's a stew. Anything is very chunky. That's what I consider a stew. I'm going to toss in 2 bay leaves. Just leave it on top like that. And another key and critical ingredient to a pozole are ancho chilies, or chili anchos. Sometimes people like guajillo chilies or arbol. It depends on what you'd like. Typically, whenever I've had a pozole, it's been ancho, and I love them. And I get dried ones. Make sure you get dried ones. I'm using 4 ounces. If you can only find a package of about 5 ounces, that's fine too. It's not going to hurt you to have a little extra. Not only are these chilies amazing, they're mild, and they add an incredibly, incredibly rich and gorgeous color to this soup as well as flavor. So what we want to do here with each ancho chili, since they're dried, is to take some scissors and snip off the top, give it a little bris, so it's nice and cut. And then you see all the seeds in there? Take a bowl and pour them in there. We don't want the seeds. So when all is said and done, our ancho chili should be nice and hollow. And then just lay that on top of our pork inside the pot. And there we go. There are my ancho chilies. I should also say, guys, worth mentioning here, that typically when a pozole is made, if it's not done in an Instant Pot, which obviously is a new way of cooking such an amazing dish, you would normally boil the ancho chilies in some water separately here until they got nice and soft. And it would be a 2 different pot situation where we would cook the pork in the broth and the veggies that we sauteed, or if you were cooking it in water, that's fine too. And then you would separately boil the ancho chilies until they became soft and we puree them. But since we're doing it in an Instant Pot, I'm just laying them on top of everything so that they could totally be cooked at the same time as the pork and everything else. And at the end, we will puree these amazing ancho chilies into the most amazing sauce, which truly turns it into this phenomenal pozole. Also, ancho chilies are super easy to come by if you can't find them in your market. Anywhere online, really. Very, very easy. I got these online on Amazon and they came in 2 days. Well, okay guys, now we're ready to pressure cook. Let's get our lid on top of the pot, make sure that we secure it, and then we put the nozzle into the sealing position. I'm gonna come back down on my control panel now and hit the cancel or the keep warm cancel button, and then hit the pressure cook or the manual button depending on your model. And I wanna go on this, guys, for 35 minutes at high pressure. You see that? Hit the plus button or the minus button to adjust till you get there. So it's at high pressure. Always leave, if your option on your Instant Pot has a normal or whatever on the upper level here, on normal. But for pressure, keep it on high. And now that we're done pressure cooking, we're going to allow a 15-minute natural release followed by a quick release. And what that means is that for 15 minutes, we're going to do nothing. This is going to begin to count up once done pressure cooking, so long as you're on the keep warm setting prior to pressure cooking. That's what's happening right now. And in 15 minutes from now, when that reads 15, that means 15 minutes of a natural release have elapsed, and we'll finish it off with a quick release. And just like that, 15 minutes have rapidly passed, and we'll finish this off with a quick release. There they just, and the pin just dropped, so now I'm going to take my lid off. And this is why I love doing a pozole in the Instant Pot, because it's truly a one-pot dish. Instead of doing the pork and cooking that in its own thing with the broth, and then doing the chili separately, I could do it at the same time. Okay guys, now comes the final step here. Take some tongs, and then take all of the ancho chilies and place them in a food processor or a blender if you have one of those instead. Okay, and there are my ancho chilies. Whoops, a piece of pork got in there. Get that pork and put it right back in the pot. You can also take these bay leaves now and discard them. And already, look at how tender this pork's gonna be, amazing. Okay, so now we have our ancho chilies and our food processor or blender. What I wanna do now is I wanna ladle out 2 cups of the broth. Let's take some 2 cups, and take a measuring cup, that'll be an easy way for you to gauge that. So there we go. And we'll come back to the pot in just a moment. Okay, and now I'm gonna fasten my food processor. I'm going to add in those 2 cups of broth that I reserved, as well as 4 cloves of garlic. You can use roasted garlic too. I have a great recipe for that. A teaspoon of kosher salt, and those other jalapenos that I have with the seeds and ribs in. Again, this is optional. You don't have to add that. It's going to create more spice though. Okay, now it's time to put our lid on and puree this. Okay, and then once it's nice and blended, it should look just like this beautiful, beautiful reddish maroon colored paste. All right, let's go back to the Instant Pot. Okay, so now back to our Instant Pot, just the way we left it before. Let's take one of these small little strainers, this is super critical, and then take our puree and pour it right into it. And now because we had a lot of chili skins in there, obviously, when we pureed, we want to now take some sort of spatula like this, and then like in a mixing fashion, press into the sieve here, this colander, and all the drippings are going to start to come and go directly into the pot. Well, the reason why we're doing this is going to take a few moments and some patience, is to make sure that any of like the seeds or the skins of the pureed pepper gets caught and left in here at the end. So just keep stirring and be a little vigorous with it as you do that. Alternatively, some people just like to put this directly into the pot as it is. I like to strain it a little bit. And you could actually save anything that we have left over here at the end for whatever you want to do in the future. If you want to use it for some sort of spice, to add it to some rice dishes, or anything you want, it's great for that. You can just pop it in the fridge. And when you're kind of left with a lot of solid paste in there at the end, you can take your spatula and just press down, really squeeze all of the juices out of that. It's almost like a sun-dried tomato, like caponata consistency when it's done. All right, guys, and when we're left with just something like this, we're done. Let's move this away, and again, you can keep this and save this for another day. It's really great stuff. You have some great spice here. You could put this in some olive oil if you want. You could create something really fantastic, so don't just get rid of it. You can do something great with it. And then, there's our pozole. I also like to add in about 2 7-ounce cans of some diced green chilies. This is totally optional, and they're on the milder side. They're not very spicy at all. And now let's get our ladle in there and give everything a final stir, and this, guys, is what you're looking for. It should be just like this, the consistency, and wait until you taste this flavor. Look at all that pork and the hominy and the peppers in there. Just creating an amazing, rich, deep, satisfying flavor, but being ultimately on the lighter side. There's not a lot of heavy ingredients in this, guys. All right, so now I'm gonna ladle this into a bowl, and I'm gonna show you how a classic way to top this off would be. All right, let's do it up. All right, so there we go, a nice amount of pozole into a bowl. And now we're gonna top it off with the following classic toppings here. Some shredded green cabbage. Sliced radish is very common to put on top of pozole. Some lime, if you want to squeeze some in there. Some fresh cilantro. So there we have it, guys. Cabbage, radish, lime, cilantro, and hominy. You had to do that, right? If you get that reference, you get extra points, folks. I don't know, guys, but this looks pretty good to me. I cannot wait to try it out, so let's do it up. All right, guys, and there's my pozole, and I'm gonna try it out. Look at how hearty this is. It is such a hearty stew. Let's just do it. Okay, well, first off, there's so much going on. I don't even know where to start. The flavors are some of the richest you will ever have in any type of soup or stew. I can guarantee you this. It's all from those amazing peppers. It all comes from that. And I'll tell you, even with those 4 jalapenos in there, it's not that spicy. I would give this on a scale of 10 in terms of spice. Like a 5.5. The flavors are so deep and rich. And it's also lighter at the same time. This isn't a dish that has like heavy creams in it. It has pork instead of red meat. The hominy. The texture is so perfect. I love the cabbage in there. It gives it a nice little bit of a crunch in the cilantro. If you like the radish, if that's your thing, it also gives a really nice type of texture to it, a little bit of a crunch. Of course, you can squeeze that lime in there if you want. I just got some in my eye though, so don't get some in your eye. Did you ever get a lime in your eye, huh? It burns. The pork, it might as well be butter because it's melting in my mouth. Oh my gosh. Now, of course you can feel free to eat this however you want. It's your rules at your kitchen, do whatever you want. But the colors in this soup are so gorgeous. Just make sure you do it justice, whatever you want to top it with. I can't get over how flavorful it is. All I gotta tell you is savor the flavor. Perfectly spectacular. Guys, if you enjoy this recipe, check out all my recipes at pressureluckcooking.com. I have a slew of them there with videos to follow, just like this one, super easy. In case you haven't heard, I wrote a cookbook, the step-by-step Instant Pot cookbook. It's an international bestseller, but wait, it's a second volume coming out, which focuses on lighter recipes just like this one. And guess what? This pozole is so grand and so well done in the Instant Pot that I had to include it in my next book. Look for the blue cover for that one. That's not out yet. It comes out in April of 2021, April 13th. And of course, at Pressure Luck Cooking, for any time a new video drops, recipes, sales on items, tips, things you don't want to miss. And at Pressure Luck Cooking on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much again, guys. And the next time you want a stew that's brilliant, flavorful, and a little bit hot, make sure you make some pozole right in your Instant Pot. Enjoy. Some cabbage.